since I have no idea when people are going to show up, and this is going to be a me ranting stream, and it's about Transformers, context isn't really going to be necessary in the first place. I don't even know if anybody's here yet, but... So, the other day, me and my friends had finished watching the Michael Bay Transformers movies. Because for those of you who are not aware, in my college years, I started getting back into Transformers because they were a very big part of my childhood, and sometimes you just get that kick, you know? And I had gone to Walmart one time, and on the shelves was a 5-pack of all the Michael Bay movies sitting right there, and I was like, that'd be amazing to just have on hand. And so me and my friends started rewatching all of them. And this is also because I had gotten them into it slightly just by proxy, because I'm insane and I forced them to watch the 1986 movie. And I'm gonna get to the 1986 movie, trust me. That movie is a entirely different can of worms. But it is because that movie is such a fun ride to watch with other people, especially on their first time, because they have no idea what to expect. And everybody who has seen it honestly barely processes what happens in the movie the first time they watch it anyway, so their second viewing is like the actual first time they're watching it, but we'll get to that later. But anyway, yeah, so we had watched the 1986 one and then moved on to the Michael Bay ones, and this last week we finished watching The Last Night after about 3 sessions of trying to watch it, because again, we'll get to it, it's not a good movie. It's a very not good movie. Yeah. So I don't really have an order of operations I want to go through with this. This is mainly just like I want to rant about this, and if people want to listen to me rant about it, all right. So if you have like any Transformers questions you want to ask, feel free to ask them in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on it. But it's just like I can talk to my friends about it, but they all know about my opinions on all these movies. But like, I'm not gonna make a 10 tweet long Twitter rant going over it. So I was like, well, I haven't streamed in a while, so why not get back into it by doing this? So you know, that's what we're gonna be doing. I doubt I'm gonna get through all the movies because I'm probably only gonna stream for a few hours, or until like, well, okay, I'm not gonna be done with this drawing by the time I'm done, because there's no way I'm getting this done in 2 hours, but how long it's gonna take for me to set the base colors. But yeah, also, here's the full view of the pic. I probably didn't show it yet. But yeah. So, to start off, those of you who are a normal person, unlike me, and has very basic to no knowledge about Transformers, they were a toy line started in the 1980s because because Reagan lessened government policies on what you can market to children. And one of those was you couldn't use a TV show to sell a product. Well, Reagan got rid of that, so toy companies jumped on that almost immediately. And Hasbro, that had partnered with the Japanese toy company Takara in the past, was like, hey, what if we localized your toy line Diaclone over here in the States and made a cartoon about it? And they were like, yeah, sure, why not? And so that's how the Transformers brand got started. There's a lot more to that, but this is not the Transformers Basics channel, which is a very good channel, by the way, if you are ever curious about how deep the rabbit hole of Transformers goes. they're an excellent channel to watch. Because they are way more knowledgeable about I am. They're also way older than I am, so they actually were around for this stuff when I was a early 2000s kid. So like my first Transformers was Armada. Well, not even Armada, it was Energon. I knew anyway, not the point of what I'm trying to get to, but basically just like my experience was with some of the early 2000 shows, watching the 1986 movie and then getting to the Michael Bay films in my, like when I was like 7. So like these films, when you're a kid, they are the best things. Okay, the first like 3 films are some of like the best movies you've ever seen. I can't vouch for Age of Extinction and The Last Night because I wasn't there for those. Well, I had grown out of it at that point, so I didn't even see them in theaters, and also I heard they weren't good, thinking that the other 3 movies were very good. I was like, well, if the Age of Extinction is not good, I'm not going to see them. And by the time The Last Night had come out, I was like, oh no, these movies just aren't good. But again, we'll get to it. Yeah, so starting off, Transformers movies, there's only really one good one, and that's Bumblebee. Bumblebee is the only movie that is like legitimately a good movie that is written well and like has a arc that makes sense. But that's the last one we get to. So but yeah, so starting off, I'm just going to be discussing the theatrical movies because there are like the TV special ones, and trust me, they're not worth talking about really. But yeah, so the 1986 movie, it's also not a good movie, but it has a lot of heart to it, and that's mainly why like I enjoy it, is because one, it is a movie from my childhood, so of course like I have that nostalgic stuff for it, but it's got heart to it that like is a weird heart, because like it doesn't function as a film. Those of you who don't know, the film is, the first 20 minutes are some of the best Transformers anything to ever exist, and it has basically consumed, like, anytime somebody talks about, oh, the original Transformers cartoon is so good and like blah 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 blah, they're not thinking of the cartoon, they are thinking of the first 20 minutes of the 1986 film, because that is where you have Optimus Prime and Megatron duking it out, and like you have the "one shall stand, one shall fall" lines. Like it's all those notable things that Transformers is known for comes from the first 20 minutes of the movie. Then the movie's only like 90 minutes long, I think, or I don't even think it's 90 minutes. I think it's like 80. For the next however long left of the film after the first 20 minutes, you are following characters you have never met before, never heard of, on a sequence of events that are loosely connected by the giant monster planet Unicron, that is also loosely connected by all the rock songs that play, that are genuinely banger songs. They're really good. The musical score on like the film is really good in every aspect besides everything that makes a good movie, because the animation is spectacular. Like, I think if you have any interest in 2D mecha or robot animation, to just watch the movie silently, like mute it, just because you're not getting anything out of the movie by listening to it outside of the music. Like, if there's a way to just cut out all the dialogue from the film, it'd probably be a better movie, make more sense. But yeah, the music, banger. Animation, amazing. Like, there are genuinely scenes that I think, like, it is a, because like it's, when you think of a movie based on a movie based on a TV show, of course, like, you're expecting the animation to be good. This is, again, some of the best 2D robot animation I've ever seen. It's got this weird sci-fi future aesthetic to it that is just absolute nonsense, but it is just, there's so much heart put into the animation and the music of this film. And the voice, like, again, the voice actors, they are giving it their all. Except for maybe Orson Welles, who don't know, Orson Welles is a very famous actor who voices Unicron in the film, and that was the last role he ever did. And he hated it, which makes it even more hilarious when you hear how he delivers lines, because he has a very booming voice that, like, it works and his delivery works, but like knowing the context, you're like, wow, he really phoned this in, huh? Because I think it was like a week after he finished recording his lines, he died, which, and it was bad. I shouldn't laugh, but it is just very funny in hindsight. That, like, one of the most famous actors in the world at the time, his last role was a giant planet that explodes, and he absolutely hated the role. Yes, Orson Welles was the voice actor for Unicron in the Transformers, the movie from 1986, and his last role in anything. But yeah, so the film is, again, it's its own thing. It's very enjoyable, especially with other people. The film is very enjoyable when you're watching with other people, because they don't have any idea what's going on. You don't have any idea what's going on. Like, I have an idea what's going on because I've seen this film too many times. But like when you're watching it with people for the first time, they are just lost, and at a point you can tell their brain breaks. Not because it's incomprehensible, but just because the movie feels like it's being played on fast forward. It genuinely never gives the audience time to breathe. And like another film in this series that also doesn't give its viewers time to breathe. It's just, it's a weird movie. Like, it is impossible to talk about the film as a film because it barely functions as one. It was a way for Hasbro to sell the next set of toys to the generation of kids by getting them in the theaters and being like, look at all of these new toys that you're gonna get. The funniest part of it is barely any of the characters in the movie ended up getting toys, which is hilarious. Part of it is because it backfired. Because also in the movie, they murder Optimus Prime in the first 20 minutes, along with all of the other, not all, but most of the pre-established Autobots and Decepticons. Most of them die at the start. And it's just like, so you're following either reformatted versions of older characters or just these random people who you have no idea who they are. I'm not gonna stop you from saying I like big ladies. Why would I? It's very obvious that I am no one to judge. But yeah, so the film's main thing on trying to sell the new set of toys backfired. Just because when you kill off, like, basically the people making, or the studio heads in charge of the movie didn't realize that kids actually were invested in the Transformers, which is, again, hilarious in hindsight when you think about, like, how it exists now and how, like, Marvel movies are now. It's like, there was a time where people legitimately thought that there's no way people are actually connecting with media, which is, again, hilarious. It's also hilarious that, like, all the reviews from critics at the time panned this movie. For good reasons. The movie isn't good. But it is just like, there were parents went to the movie because their kids were like, oh, we gotta see this movie. And the parents were like, what is happening? Because it is, again, it's a incomprehensible, dense movie that is both very good and very bad at the same time. It is a movie that has a soft spot in my heart, and I will force anybody I make as a friend to watch it, because it explains a lot about me. I don't think the movie is good. It's not a good movie. It's just a very enjoyable. It's not even like a so bad it's good movie, because it doesn't even have like those aspects where it's like, haha, you can get a laugh out of this. It's a cinematic experience that is unlike anything you will ever see. Yeah, that's like I'm about to get to the Bayformer movies because it is. I don't have much to say about the 1986 film that isn't just the animation is really good. The music hits so hard for no reason. But so that's what's like. I wasn't planning to spend too much time on it because there's just not a lot to talk about. And it's like with movies, the movies that I like more, I'm going to talk about them less because I have less stuff to critique them on. And again, these movies are low-hanging fruit. I know. That's why I'm not a YouTuber. That's why I'm not a movie critic. That's why I'm rambling on constantly, is because I'm not that kind of person who usually does this kind of stuff. But it is just like, I genuinely enjoy Transformers, so I want to help those, not help, I want to show those who are not invested in it at all that, like, yeah, these people are just as insane as I think they would be, because you're right. But yeah, the Bayformer movies, when you're younger, they hit different. Like, it is nearly impossible for me to watch these movies now and be like, how did I enjoy this? Because the first, like, getting to the first Bayformer film, it is, like, in terms of actual perceived quality, it is probably the second best Transformers film. I like the 1986 one more, but that is only because of nostalgia. That is the only reason. But like, it is a pretty solid movie, all things considered. Like, it is the only film that feels like it wanted to tell a story, and it told that story pretty well. Again, all things considered, it told that story pretty well. Now, what is that story? That story is I'm not going to say run-of-the-mill because I can't really think of an example that emulates it, but just that, like, you know that thing when people say, like, oh, Marvel movies are so much better when they are a more, like, a comic, like a superhero film plus another genre. That's why I think the first Transformers movie works as well as it does, is because it's a mystery thriller combined with a giant robot action film. When me and my friends rewatched it, we were like, this movie's kind of good. Like, it's not perfect. There's a good amount of racism in the movie and a whole lot of sexism. And neither of those things get any better the more you watch the movies or the longer amount of time between the movies. But I'm trying to think of where, again, like, this stream is a stream of consciousness. I don't have like a chalkboard ready for like all the points I want to hit. I am just going off. But yeah, so this movie is like, it spends a lot of time developing the like, yeah. I'm like, honestly, I haven't actually watched the original cartoon like to the full, so I would not be surprised if that was an actual country. Yeah, because that TV show, it went places. It went a lot of places. Whether those places were good is up to the viewer's interpretation. But so the first film is basically you get the robot, the Transformers are treated like horror movie characters for a good amount of the film. Like, if I divorce myself from knowing what a Transformer is, the movie treats these things like they're an alien life form that is coming to Earth and we have no idea how they function, what their motives are, why they're doing what they're doing. And so a lot of the movie is spending time with the humans. And here's it, this is the best human cast out of all the films. Part of it is because it has the most human cast. You might be saying, aren't like the humans the worst parts about the films? I would say yes, in every movie besides the first one, which is again, strange to say. But it is like the first film feels like it balances out the robot stuff and the human stuff the best. Even though, like, again, it's just weird. It's weird because these movies are weird. But yeah, so it's like the first scene in the movie is the Decepticon Blackout attacking a American military base to get data on something. What that something is, we won't know until about halfway through the film. Or maybe halfway, maybe like a third. Also, gonna be giving your red lingerie because I think it'll look good. I know it's not probably a traditional wedding thing, but it's my art. I do what I want. Yeah, so it's like, genuinely, if you divorce your knowledge of what a Transformer is from the film, you don't know if Bumblebee's a good guy. You wouldn't know. How would you know? Because he's acting he's trying to get in close with Sam, but you don't really know if he's a threat until like later on. But for like, the movie spends a lot of time with like the government people, them trying to figure out like, what are these attacks? How are they happening? Are they attacked from another country? And it's like, it's interesting stuff that none of the other movies have that feeling to them. That like there's genuine effort put into like how these characters are interacting, what their connections are. And it's like you have all these plot lines that are all going to converge later on in the movie, and it works. It works so well in the first film, and it's just and like the CG in the films, they really hold up until the last two. Then it kind of gets a little iffy, but the first movie, it still holds up. I think like the movie visually still really holds up. Everybody is very sweaty. Everybody's very orange and very blue because the saturation and color grading is cranked up and just orange and blues. But again, it gives the film a unique aesthetic that is just like, you know what? It has the balls to look like this. That unique look is gone from the rest of the films, and it makes me sad. Because it is like, it gives it a unique style that is just not apparent with the other films. But the but here comes from the fact that, yes, if you're coming for the Transformers, there aren't a lot of them in this film, but I feel like they're used smartly. Like, it is like, we get our Transformer smorgasbord fights later on, but the first half of the film doesn't really abuse them that much, and that is, again, it plays into that mystery thriller vibe that the first half has, that is just interesting. Because it's like the moment the Autobots arrive on Earth, the whole entire tone of the film changes. Not saying that's a bad thing, that's just how the film works, is that like, for the first half of the movie, we don't really know who's on whose side, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, who's gonna figure stuff out. And then by the point that the Autobots show up, we're like, okay, these are the good guys. Even though, big problem with all of the films is that not all the Transformers, all the characters, they kind of suck in these movies. Except for Michaela, who is justified in how she is acting in these films. Like, Michaela is legitimately, on rewatch, is one of probably the best characters in the films, which is also very sad. But it is just like, she has a character arc, in the first movie, not in the second movie. In the second movie, nobody has character arcs. Everybody is just awful. But again, get to that. But yeah, so like it's, I don't, again, like I'm gonna lose my train of thought through this entire stream because that is just what's gonna happen sometimes. But yeah, so like Michaela's like legitimately one of the best characters in the first film, which is surprising. And the Autobots are just like, besides Optimus, just kind of like there. Like they're kind of jerks sometimes for no apparent reason. Again, it gets more apparent in future films that all the Autobots are jerks for no reason. Especially in the last two movies, to preface this, they are the worst movies. Like this series is a downward slope, but there is a gigantic dip between 3 and 4, and then 5 is just an awful movie experience that I can't even recommend anybody to watch, even as a joke. Like I could see people rewatching the first movie, Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon. Just because those films, while they range of quality, they're still like enjoyable as movies. Again, Revenge of the Fallen is I hate ranking these movies because it is just like, to me personally, it is a straight downward slope. One of my friends will argue that Dark of the Moon is better than Revenge of the Fallen. I don't think so. I think they're both equally bad, and Dark of the Moon is just boring and also bad. And that is way worse to me than a movie that is bad but is enjoyable. Because there's nothing worse than being boring. Except in extreme cases, which is what The Last Night is. Because Age of Extinction is also boring bad, but The Last Night is incomprehensible mess. Not boring. The movie is not boring. You can't take your eyes away from the movie, but part of that is because you have no idea what's happening and you're trying to grasp what is happening by what you're seeing on screen, and none of it is helping. But again, we'll get to The Last Night. Hopefully never. But yeah, first movie, it's solid. The whole plate scene is iconic for a reason, because the jokes in this movie, not all of them land, but most of them surprisingly do, and it's just an enjoyable movie. And again, I'm gonna press it, it's an enjoyable movie. You need to watch these movies. If you're ever going to watch any of them besides Bumblebee, you need to watch them with other people, because they are awful if you do not. You will not feel like the same person you do walking into these movies if you watch them by yourself. That's just that is the puzzle's guarantee that you will not be the same if you try and watch these movies by yourself. But yeah, so getting on to Revenge of the Fallen. Revenge of the Fallen is the start of everybody being an awful person. In the first movie, it's like you genuinely feel like, well, some characters like are at odds with each other. It like everybody feels like they're gonna come together in the end, you know? You do not get that with Revenge of the Fallen. Revenge of the Fallen is just is the start of everybody just being mean and annoying. Yeah, so the Cuba segment, that is in The Last Night, and every time it cuts to Cuba, none of it works. Part of it is because the movie itself doesn't work. That's a very big reason why those scenes don't work. But yeah, The Last Night is a different beast of a film. Like I kind of just want to skip the whole conversation, just talk about The Last Night, because that movie is like there's a reason why it was the last of the Bayformer films, because it's genuinely just a very bad movie with no redeeming qualities. but I'm gonna try to get to it naturally, even though I definitely have to stop my thoughts halfway through just to rant about it. Yeah, so Revenge of the Fallen. Like it's not good. It's not good. It's the start of the Transformers movies retconning themselves into submission, but it is the only one where I feel the retcon is justified. Because in all the films, they change when was the humans' first, or Earth's first contact with the Transformers. It changes every movie. And we'll get to the last night, which is the worst one. But in this movie, it's like, actually in like ancient, like not prehistory, because like humans were around, but like very early humanity made contact with the Transformers, and some bad stuff happened. So it's like that one is like the least bad, because it is just like, it feels like this thing could have happened so long ago that, yeah, there's no way anybody alive could have known this. Again, this breaks in half when you get to the later movies, and they're like, yeah, Harriet Tubman worked with the Transformers, and you're like, who worked with the who? And then there's just like badly photoshopped images of Optimus Prime working with soldiers in like the 1800s, and it's like, this one didn't even get here until the fucking 2007. What do you mean he's there? And again, it's almost like these movies aren't good. But yeah, so Revenge of the Fallen, it starts off with the retconning stuff, and it's like, it's fine. It's the least egregious, and the film also just isn't good. This is something that I wanted to bring up, is that the parents of Shia LaBeouf, Sam Witwicky in the films, a lot of people don't like them. After rewatching these films, they are the only bright points in Revenge of the Fallen, because you know what? The mom and dad actor, they're giving it their all with the very little role that they have. And I respect them. Characters aren't good. They're kind of very unfunny, but you know what? They got charm to them. They got spunk, and I respect it. Now, when it comes to Sam, he's not as bad as he is in Dark of the Moon, which is a low point for everything and everybody in existence until Age of Extinction, in which case they managed to dig deeper. But in this movie, it starts the whole like, it's just a little bit annoying. But it is like he has a character arc, and when you find out this film was written in a week, it explains a lot of things that doesn't explain the rest of the film series and how bad they are. But yeah, for those of you who don't know, around 2009, the Writers Union of America, or I may be wrong in the name, but they had a giant strike to on how writers were treated as the internet started becoming more of like a thing. Like how did they get credited and compensated when the internet's a thing, you know? And like streaming was like starting to become something. So it was like, basically they went on strike, and that was around the time production of this movie started. Michael Bay and his team wrote this movie in a week, with no actual like professional writer helping them with it. And yeah, it kind of does show, but at the same time, I give the movie credit. It could have been a lot worse. I don't know how it could have been worse, and I'm terrified of thinking about how it could have gone worse than this. But just knowing that, and knowing that like the film is still competent in quotation marks, I give it some credit. Credit that I cannot afford to the other films. But I don't remember if this movie introduced the Fallen or not. I know it didn't introduce the concept of the Primes having somebody who betrayed them in the past, and that person was named Megatronus, and then Megatron named himself after the ancient Prime that betrayed the other Primes. Bleh. I don't remember if that... I think that was established before now, but then the Fallen name was just given to him because maybe the writers thought Megatronus was too heavy-handed. I don't know. We live in a world, like, the movies have a giant robot called Devastator. Subtlety is not the strong point of Transformers. So I think it's a dumb decision. I think Megatronus and being like, oh yeah, it was named after him is just way better than being like, I am the Fallen because I was the Fallen Prime. And I'm like, did you give that your name yourself, or did they just call you that and you decided to run with it? I don't know. The film doesn't bother to explain that much, and good on it, because I sincerely doubt they have the time. Hi, Lucy. I am gonna go get some water real quick because I've been talking for almost an hour and I've not drank anything, so I'm gonna go get some water. And you should also get some water. Stay hydrated. It's hot out right now. Alright, I am back. I have my water. Hello, Tomlass. I don't recognize your name from my followers. So I'm gonna say hi, but I don't know who you are yet. Sometimes like I'm able to figure out who's who, but initial interactions, I'm sorry if I don't recognize you. But yeah, so back to Transformers. Yeah, so we're at Revenge of the Fallen. Talking about the retcons, the Fallen. But yeah, so basically, the film's also a college movie about Sam Witwicky going to college. And that is legitimately the worst parts of the movie, which is saying a lot because there are a lot of not good parts about this movie. It's just kind of boring. Like, it's not very interesting college stuff. It does have one of the most hilarious scenes in cinema, which is the scene where Shia LaBeouf gets up in front of his class and starts ranting about how Einstein was wrong, and then the creepy professor who is weird to his students, it's just like, you're embarrassing me in front of the dean. And so this, in my 9-year-old head, put in the fact that, oh, deans of the schools just show up to classes sometimes. After experiencing college, that was a lie. Outside of very specific circumstances, never did a dean of a college show up for a random class, especially at the start of the school year. Unless my college was just built different. I don't know, it might have been. But yeah, so the Sam Witwicky college stuff. Also, Megan Fox's Michaela is here. She does nothing for this whole movie. I am sincerely glad that Megan Fox, after these films, never returned. I don't really remember. Like, I know she was on bad terms with Michael Bay after this movie. But you know what? After seeing the movies and seeing how she was treated and written, good for her. I'm glad that she is doing better now, and is like just like a good actor. Almost like the movies weren't giving her anything to work with. But anyway, where the hell was I? But yeah, so Michaela is there. There is this chick in the college arc that is hitting on Sam, and Bumblebee doesn't like her. Because Bumblebee comes to Sam's college for some reason. That reason like isn't really made obvious by the film. He just kind of does it because he wants to be with Sam. But like as he is driving the girl home, Bumblebee starts like being like, she's a super freak. And it's like, you're like, okay, so Bumblebee thinks something is up with this girl, or is he mad that Sam is potentially cheating on Michaela? That question is never answered in this film. We find out later she's a Decepticon, which the whole pretender thing is the whole thing, because if they could just infiltrate human society, why don't they just do that normally? Movie doesn't care to answer. I don't care to think about it. But it is just like, well, if Bumblebee knew she was a Decepticon, why didn't Bumblebee do anything? It's an excellent question. I don't have an answer for. Oh my god, my brain is absolutely fried right now. This is what happens when you talk about Transformers for too long. You just your brain melts. Like honestly, I'm probably gonna have to stop streaming early because I can tell that like talking this much is actually giving me a headache. So yeah, I may only stream for like 30 more minutes. Yeah, so Revenge of the Fallen, college stuff is happening. Sam has a roommate who's awful. Like in this entire thing, as the movies go along, you're gonna hear me say like, introduce the character. They're awful. That is just how it works for most of these movies. Also, the Autobots are doing stuff in the film. It doesn't really matter. There are a whole bunch of new Autobots that aren't addressed on like how they got here. They just show up. And two of them are Skids and Mudflap. I will not discuss them for the rest of this discussion because they are very annoying and very racist. And it's kind of very uncomfortable to see them on screen because somebody thought that was okay. Again, the movie was written in a week, so they probably didn't. Okay, it doesn't excuse anything, but it explains a lot. But yeah, so the Autobots are doing their thing. They contact Sam and they're like, the Decepticons are doing some shit, but we're not really sure what it is. So you should be, you should try and be safe. Have like Bumblebee protect you. And Sam was like, okay. And then the Decepticon pretender girl tries kissing Sam. Michaela walks in the moment that Sam is almost getting raped by the girl, which is just great. And then Michaela walks in and interrupts it. And the Decepticon pretender girl is like, is that your girlfriend? And Michaela is like, X. And then she storms off. And then as Sam is trying to catch up to her, pretender girl shows off that she's actually a Transformer and tries to kill him. And then shenanigans ensue. There's a lot of arguing, like, why were you kissing a girl? It's like, she wasn't kissing me, I wasn't kissing her, she was kissing me, blah, 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 blah. That stuff happens. And then they escape from the pretender girl. I think they kill her by running her over with a car. Because, yes. And then pretender Transformers are never addressed ever again. And then they are trying to escape. They're trying to find the Autobots because Bumblebee is nowhere to be found for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why Bumblebee isn't there in this part of the film. But they get captured by the Decepticons because, again, Bumblebee is nowhere to be seen for some reason. And then the Decepticons, also a while back, there was an Allspark shard that got caught in Sam's eye. And then he starts seeing symbols and stuff, and so they're just I know it sounds like my brain exploded, and that's because I realized Sam, the vision of the Allspark thing, I don't actually remember why The Decepticons needed that. That just kind of broke my mind a little bit, because it was like, wait a second, what was the point of that? Because like usually these films, like when they set up a plot point, even if it is a bad payoff, they still try to pay it off in some way. I legitimately don't think that ever had a point in the whole film. Anyway, the Autobots show up, and they start fighting the Decepticons. Optimus Prime shows up. There's a really cool fight scene in the woods. It's probably the only good part of this film, because there's like zero dialogue and it's just a giant robot fight. And yeah, it's cool. It's a really cool scene because it's just Optimus Prime going ham on people. And while Optimus Prime is a Optimus Prime is a big sexy in all these movies, like it was to the point that my friends who I was watching it were surprised they couldn't find any horny fan art of movie Optimus Prime. And I'm like, I'm sure there is. We just aren't looking hard enough. Because it was like in The Last Night when he gets his like redesign, he's just like, he's built like a Greek statue, and it's just like, I mean, I'll take it. But anyway, yeah, so Optimus Prime is fighting the Decepticons, and then he dies. And for the rest of the film, his dead body is just slung around by helicopters. Like there's a scene where his dead body is transported to an army base, and they just kind of drop it like a sack of potatoes on the tarmac, I think is what it's called. And it's absolutely hilarious because the scene is shot and like edited to be like a very somber moment, and then you just see Optimus Prime just go boom on the floor. And they do the same thing later where they have to transport his body to Egypt. They just lift it up with helicopters and just boom. Honestly though, like especially like the Transformers comic artists, I'm like, I don't know how y'all do this. It's like it's just like if you want to know, like, for those of you who are interested, who is probably no one, the Transformer artist that I think is the best at conveying these designs well and like giving them personalities, Alex Milne, is on Twitter, really good at drawing Transformers, and he was one of the main artists on the only really good Transformer comic, More Than Meets the Eye. He was like the main artist for that one, and I like reading it, I was like, dang, this guy, he draws Transformers so well, because he doesn't draw them like giant robots, he draws them like people who are mechanical, and it's just his art just hits different. But anyway, getting back on topic, bad movies. While Optimus Prime is dead and slung around like a sack of potatoes, Sam and his pals are like, okay, let's go to that very annoying guy who knew stuff about Transformers in the first film, see if he can help. And he's like, I don't know, I can't help you. But you want to know who can help? The small robot that Megan Fox put into a dog carrier earlier in the movie, he can help because he knows where to go, because he needs to find the Seekers. The Seekers apparently came to Earth long ago looking for the Allspark, but they all went offline at some point in the past. So they're like, okay, the closest one is in the... Yes, exactly, the Tom Kenny robot. It was, when I was watching it with my friends, we were like, wait a second, is that fucking Tom Kenny? And we had to look it up, and yeah, it is Tom Kenny. And like, I can only assume that how they got him is because he was voicing Starscream in Transformers Animated at the time. So Hasbro probably already had him like in like the recording stuff. They're like, hey, can you just voice this character in the film? And he was like, sure. That's the only way I could process him being there. Also, I think it's, let me make sure I'm getting the name right. because it's another like Kevin Michael Richardson. Is that? Yes. There's also Kevin Michael Richardson. He voices one of the primes later on in the movie. And it's just like, I heard his voice and I'm like, wait, that's Sheriff Blubbs from Gravity Falls. And it's like, I know he does a lot more stuff than that because he's a very big voice actor. But it is just like, you hear a voice and you're like, instantly just relate it to the next character that you recognize. Yeah, Tom Kenny may just take anything on. Tom Kenny, he's a legend, but sometimes you're like, what is he doing here? Doesn't he have better things to do? Or maybe he's just like, I will voice act anything because I love voice acting. That may be it. I don't know. I think it was I was watching some show recently. I don't remember, but like I heard Tom Kenny's voice and I'm like, Tom Kenny? It's so funny recognizing voice actors because you're just like, it takes you a second to be like, wait, it is him. But yeah, so they go find the Seeker. He's an old robot who they think is a Decepticon, but turns out he's not a Decepticon, he just has a Decepticon symbol, which raises so many questions. But the movie doesn't have time to address it. I say the movie doesn't have time to address it. These movies are all like 2 to 2.5 hours long, and God, do you feel them. But the movie, it's not the movie doesn't have time. The movie doesn't care to explain it, so we just have to move on. So he tells them, you need to find the Matrix of Leadership, because that's the only way you can stop the Fallen, because now that Optimus Prime is dead, the Fallen can now do stuff. It isn't really explained what exactly killing Optimus Prime, like why that exactly caused the Fallen to be able to do stuff, whether it was just like, oh, now that all the Primes are dead, I can move forward. But the thing is like, who were we know there was one other Prime before Optimus, but when did Optimus, like, it, movie doesn't care, I shouldn't care. So I think I know the exact, like, yeah, I was about to say, it's like, I'm pretty sure it's Jennifer's Body, which also has Megan Fox in it, which ties it all back into Transformers. See, everything comes back to Transformers in some regard. Like, it's the same thing as Mr. Krabs' voice actor, forgetting his name, how he's just, in every other thing he's in besides SpongeBob, he swears so much, and it's amazing because you can just be like, Mr. Krabs, Sailor Mouth, haha, SpongeBob. But yeah, so yeah, back to the movie that makes no sense. Like, honestly, I'm talking a lot about Revenge of the Fallen, like basically doing a plot recap, but it is, when we get to Dark of the Moon, I'm honestly just gonna skip it. The movie's just kind of boring. It doesn't have any, like, funny, dumb stuff outside of a few things that I will address. But yeah, so Revenge of the Fallen, all the characters are starting to come into Egypt, and so they get to Egypt, and then some of the side characters are just like, oh, we're gonna go over here, and then the other characters go over there. And then Devastator shows up. Devastator. Fuck. By itself, a solid design. Like, all the movie designs are absolutely insane monstrosities. There's no way around that. Devastator is a mess of a monstrosity of a thing, but it works well enough. And it gives us the most line to ever be written by humans. That is, I am directly below the enemy scrotum, which is the only thing me and my friends were looking forward to when rewatching this film, because we had at least seen this one, so we know that, like, enemy scrotum is coming. When do you think that famous line is said in this movie? Because we were thinking, like, okay, it's got to happen, like, it happens like 20 minutes before the end of the film, right? Because Devastator's taken out, and then the Fallen shows up, right? No. I am directly below the enemy's scrotum. Happens 8 minutes before the end of the film. We waited like 2 hours and 15 minutes to hear that one line, and the rest of the movie is not worth that. It is just better to look up that scene on YouTube if you want to experience it. Also, it is very funny because like it was during this rewatch was when the new Batman movie had come out. And so when it was my friend, like it had gone up onto HBO because me and my friends weren't able to see it in theaters, and I get a text from them like as I'm watching it, and they're just like, dude, John Turturro is in the Batman. And it's like, it's not a big deal, but it is like, John Turturro is the guy who says, I'm directly below the enemy's scrotum. And then he has like not appeared in that many films since the Transformers movies he's in. So like when I got to the part of the film and he showed up, I was like, he's allowed to be in good movies again? But anyway, yeah, Revenge of the Fallen, the big action climax happens. Jetfire, the Seeker dude, dies to give his life source to Optimus Prime. Also, Sam Witwicky dies. He goes to Transformers Heaven for a little bit, and then he gets better. And then he's no longer Transformers Heaven, but he has the Matrix leadership. Gives it Prime. Prime's alive. Jetfire sacrifices himself to give Optimus Prime his jet mode, which is used one time in this film, and then one time in the next film, and then is immediately forgotten. But good lord, Optimus Prime is jacked up when he is in jet mode. He is thick as hell. But yeah, then he goes off to fight Megatron and the Fallen. The fight scene happens, and then we get the first instance of Optimus Prime really liking to murder people in these movies. Because as he's fighting the Fallen, he stabs him through the chest, and then takes the Fallen's like face tendril things, starts pulling them forward to tear off his face, and then he says, "Give me your face," and then he tears it off, killing him instantly. And it's just like, Optimus. Whew. Like it's a bigger problem with like the rest of the films that Optimus Prime is like a murder-hungry maniac half the time. But it is also very hilarious watching movies because it is like Optimus Prime's like, I stand for truth, justice. And then he's just gonna be like, and I'm gonna just straight up murder people. But yeah, and then the movie ends with Optimus Prime giving a speech, because Optimus Prime gives a speech at the end of all the films. And this one is like the second best speech. Because it's the second movie, and the speeches just get worse. Okay. I think I'm gonna get through Dark of the Moon, and then I'm gonna stop the stream, because I could go on for hours about the last two films, which I will save for another day. In the fourth movie, he is the most murder hungry. And that's saying a lot, because in the fifth movie, he's literally just evil and wants to kill people. But he only shows up for like 38 seconds in the fifth movie. So he doesn't have enough time to go on a murdering spree. In the fourth movie, yeah, no, he's hell-bent on murdering everybody. Not just Decepticons, he is hell-bent on murdering humans too. It is amazing. Not in a good way, just very, very strange. Yeah, so Dark of the Moon it's not, again, it goes back to Revenge of the Fallen is enjoyable. It's a bad movie. It's not good, but it can be enjoyed. Dark of the Moon, my friends will argue, is better than Revenge of the Fallen. I disagree. I think they're both the same amount of bad. It's just that the low points of Revenge of the Fallen are so much lower than Dark of the Moon, but Dark of the Moon is just a constant low. And it's mainly because the movie is so up its own butt about its like conspiracy storyline that it fails to make much of the movie interesting. But I need to talk about the Transformers retcons first, because this movie decides that the American government knew about a Autobot ship landing on the moon in the 60s, and that's why they needed to send people up onto the moon to investigate. All right, cool. Kind of makes sense. Because it is just like, we know that like Sector 7 was a thing, so it's like it's possible that like this could have happened. It kind of is funny though that it just so happened to land on the same planet. Optimus Prime never bothers to check the moon to see if that's maybe where Sentinel Prime was at. Again, it's weird on how like it was never brought up until now. But ignoring that, the movie is also following Shia LaBeouf post-college. That basically he has realized he has very little credentials outside of saving the human race, and it's nearly impossible for him to find a job. However, there is the funniest line in any of the movies, which is during Sam's interviews. He like tells him like, oh, I got a medal from the president. And the president at the time of these movies was Barack Obama. There is a picture of Shia LaBeouf getting a medal from Barack Obama in this movie, and it is amazing, but that's besides the point. So he's just like, yeah, I got a medal from the president. And then the company, and then the guy for the representing the company goes like, so we're all Republicans here. And then he immediately gets shushed off, and it's like, that is an amazing joke. Why is it in this movie? It's like, it is the movies all have like a few genuine laugh moments, but this is like the only one where it actually feels like I'm laughing with the movie at that joke, and not just, God, that was such an awful line kind of laughing. But yeah, so at the start of this movie, Shia LaBeouf, Sam Witwicky, is also down on his luck because he no longer has Bumblebee around, because Bumblebee is now a big hotshot government agent who left Sam, which is just kind of weird because why is Bumblebee suddenly working with the government when he didn't do that in the previous two movies? I don't know. I don't think we're given a reason, and I frankly, like a lot of things in these movies, don't care. So Sam is just down on his luck. His parents come by, and his parents are like doing some kind of road trip thing, and they are, again, parents, they're just, the actors are doing a good job. They're not in the movies for that long. I know a lot of people don't like them, but you know what? They're fun. They give enjoyment to these movies, and honestly, any bit of enjoyment I can get out of the later ones is good. Yeah, so like basically, also Sam has a new girlfriend now, because the thing is, he has a new girlfriend. The funniest thing is, it is clear her role was intended for Michaela, because Michaela's whole thing is that she worked at an auto engineer shop. Like her dad loved cars. She started working at his shop afterwards. So in this movie, if it was Michaela, she would be working at a big like car dealer manufacturing firm now, and that she would be the one bringing in the moolah, while Sam's masculinity gets harmed because he's not the breadwinner, she is. But it's very clear that this new girl is supposed to be Michaela, but couldn't be because Megan Fox no longer wanted to work on the movies. Again, good for her. I'm glad she got out of this. Hello, Mode Wondershot. Yes, I am doing well. I don't know how much longer I will be shit-talking them. I'm currently in the middle of Dark of the Moon, and I'm probably gonna stop there just because I haven't talked this long in a while, and my voice is starting to go a little bit. And I'm also maybe starting to get a little bit of a headache. So I'm probably gonna stop after Dark of the Moon. Yeah, so it's like the role is clearly intended for Michaela, but they couldn't get Megan Fox back for a lot of reasons. So they just wrote in this new character that is clearly supposed to be Michaela, but they also have to make lines where they shit talk Michaela, which is just like, all right, Michael Bay, we get it. Yeah, so all that's happening, and the Autobots find out, the Autobots go to Chernobyl, which it turns out the reason why the Chernobyl exploded was because they were experimenting on this like Cybertronian core thing, and that's what caused the meltdown. It's like, all right, Transformers, okay. Honestly, good on you for stopping after the second one, because you're not missing out on anything. I can trust you that. I can tell you that. You're not missing out on anything good. So yeah, so the Autobots find like the core thing, and they go back to the human government, and they're like, how could you not tell us about this, blah 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 blah. And then they're just like, well, we need to go to the moon because there's some shit on the moon that may be Cybertronian. So they go to the moon. They go to the moon, and they find out that that like all the Autobots on the ship are dead except for one. And it turns out that one Autobot left is Optimus's mentor, Sentinel Prime. And it's like, which makes the Fallen hilarious in hindsight, because it's just like, oh, all the Primes are dead, nobody can stop me, except Sentinel Prime was like, he was offline, but he was still alive, you know? So yeah, so they take Sentinel Prime back to Earth. Optimus Prime uses the Matrix to revive him. And then, yeah, trying to remember the order. That's the stupid movie. So yeah, so then after that happens, Sam gets a job at this place that I think is owned by Gary Busey. I think that's who's playing the boss guy. I don't remember. But yeah, so that's happening, and he gets attacked by this dude, who I believe is named Wang. He is an Asian character. Could you tell? And it's just like, it's one of the worst scenes in the movie, which is saying a lot because the movie doesn't have a lot of good scenes. But he basically tells him that there's a conspiracy going on, and then Wang is shoved out a window by a Decepticon. Because these movies are a nightmare. It's also there's a haha gay joke scene where somebody walks in on Wang like interrogating Sam, and then it oh haha, it looks like they were having sex in the bathroom. And it's like, I hate you. I'm sorry. Dark of the Moon, it just pisses me off a lot, which is saying a lot because the rest of the movies also piss me off a lot. Nope, he was the dude with the dual pistols. That was Wang. He pulls the gun on the Laserbeak and says some line about how he's cool or something, and then he gets shoved out the window. But yeah, so that happens, and then what am I trying to do? What am I trying to do? There we go. Hang on, I'm just playing. So that stuff happens, and then I think Sam is just like, oh, there's some shit going on. I need to go talk to Bumblebee and Optimus. And he tries to go there, but then all the government people are like, you shouldn't be here, kid. You're nobody. You're just a random dude. You're not part of this thing anymore. And there's this evil government lady who's only evil in government because she's a woman. If a guy was talking to Sam like this, it would be a completely different scenario, and they'd probably be like, dude brooding out, but because she's a woman, she has to be written poorly because she's in a Transformers movie. And then there's also Agent Simmons, aka John Turturro. He's in this movie for some reason. I don't remember what he does. I know he does some like government conspiracy stuff, and I think Gary Busey shows up to Sam's apartment at one point while John Turturro is there as they're trying to figure out stuff. I don't remember, because this film is a whole lot of nonsense. But yeah, so basically it is just like stuff is happening, and then as I think it's like they figure out that Sam and his pals figure out that the Decepticons are after Sentinel Prime because he has these like warp gate keys and stuff. So they're trying to like tell the Autobots like, oh my god, you need to get Sentinel out of here, blah, 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 blah. And so they try to protect Sentinel to get him back to like the human army base places. And then a fight scene happens. It's a decent fight scene. Some cool stuff happens. The Decepticons are absolutely disgusting in it though, so oh well. And so they get back, and Sentinel Prime, who's voiced by Leonard Nimoy, who's doing a fantastic job. And it's also not the first time he's voiced a Transformers character, because he voiced Galvatron back in the 1986 film. It all comes back around. But anyway, he's a good actor. He's doing a good, or he was a good actor. Rest in peace. But yeah, so like he's just like, basically he's just like, a deal had to be made with Megatron, and then he blows Ironhide's brains out or something, and it's like, okay. It's a heel turn that has no build-up and does not make sense, but it is a heel turn nonetheless. The reason why is because in all Transformers media, Sentinel Prime is always either some kind of betrayer or a dick, so that's the justification. Not a good one, but it is a justification. And then what happens after that? Yeah, okay, yeah. So basically after that, genocide happens. Because basically once Sentinel Prime reveals himself to be in cahoots with the Decepticons start their attack on Earth, first by taking over Chicago. Because that's where this movie is taking place, apparently. It's just, they kept their invasion only to Chicago, which is just like, okay. Because basically, like, they want also, there's a scene where Megatron blows up a statue of Abraham Lincoln in DC, and sits on it like he's Abraham Lincoln, and it's just like, I don't know why he had to do that, but I'm glad he did. But it's starting to notice, you're starting to notice something with the relationship between Sentinel and Megatron, is that Sentinel is really the one calling the shots. This will come back into play later. Yeah, I'm gonna have to play around with this white dress, because I think I'm gonna have to make it. I think I'm gonna have to go more yellow with it rather than keeping the shades blue. I know this is like the first time I've actually addressed what I've been working on this entire stream. I still have the streaming thing up on the side. Yeah, I was really just gung-ho about ranting about Transformers. I'm sorry. I avoided thinking about anything else. Yeah, so Revenge of the Fallen, genocide happens, and basically they're like, if you want us to not kill the humans, you must send the Autobots off of Earth. And everybody is just like, that seems like a perfectly fair and reasonable thing to do. Nothing will go wrong. So they put the Autobots in a shuttle, and they're just like, don't worry, don't worry, like, it's, everything will be fine. We're doing this for the greater good of humanity. But like, also, like, something to address when we get more into Age of Extinction, but like, it ends up being like humanity turns on the Autobots, and it's like, I know the reasoning is like, oh, the only reason why we're getting attacked by Decepticons is because of the Autobots coming here, which is a blatant lie. Like, it is like the stuff with Sentinel Prime. Whenever he got awoken, like, it's while yes, the Autobots coming here has caused problems, it is also that, like, it's very clear that Cybertronians coming to Earth is a bigger problem when you go way back in time. That it's not just the Autobots' fault. And they have done nothing except actually help humanity this whole time. So, you know what? It doesn't make any sense. But anyway. So yeah, so they send them off in the rocket ship. Also, there are these new Autobots called I think they're called the Wreckers. They do nothing. They're just stereotypes. And they are race cars. That is all they do. I think they cut down Optimus Prime out of wires at some point in the movie. That is literally the only thing they do besides be, I think, Scottish. I think that's it. Yeah. And then, so they go up into the rocket ship, and then, oh no, Starscream was waiting for them up in space and blows up the shuttle, and they're like, oh, it can't be. The Decepticons were lying to us? Like they are decepting us? Yeah, so basically it's, now the Autobots are gone, Decepticons are like, alright, time to start the invasion of Earth. Also because, like, of the, like, warp gate stuff that Sentinel Prime has, they also want to bring Cybertron to Earth. That's the thing that's happening. Yeah, so, and then after that happens, Sam is just like, well, you know what? If we're all gonna die anyway, I'm gonna go out swinging. So he gets a ragtag group of pals, and are like, we're gonna go die, pretty much. Like, we're gonna die, but we're gonna die fighting. And then the Autobots are nowhere to be seen because, well, they are presumed dead. And then as Sam and his crew are gonna walk into Chicago, a Decepticon battleship shows up, and they're like, oh shit, we're gonna die before we even get into the city. But then the Decepticon ship is shot down by unknown gunfire, and then Optimus fucking Prime shows up, and he's like, don't give up hope, Sam, because hope is the right of all sentient beings, blah blah blah. And they're like, oh, how did you survive? And they're just like, yeah, we knew we were gonna get blown up, so we just, they give some bullshit excuse. It's like, literally, it's like, that doesn't make any sense how you would have been able to get out of there in time. We literally, not a big deal. Not a big deal. It's not a big deal. But yeah, and so then the big third act action scene starts. There is an hour left in this movie. The last hour is one big long action scene. And the thing is, you might be saying, like, that should be awesome. It's a whole bunch of robot fighting. Somehow made it boring. I don't know how they made it boring, but they made it boring. Part of it is because Optimus Prime, big dude who you need to solve all your problems, he's out of the fight because he gets tangled in some wires and needs to get cut down. And that's like 30 minutes that he's just out of the movie because he'd be too strong otherwise. Like, there's a whole bunch of other, Shockwave is in this film, forgot to mention him. Honestly, probably one of the best movie redesigns out of all of them is Shockwave's. Just because, like, it's hard to fuck up and they did a good job. But yeah, Shockwave he's fine. Starscream gets taken out by Sam because he sticks a bomb in his eye and he can't get it out, and then Starscream explodes. The end to Starscream. And then Sentinel Prime is just kind of like, Megatron, you're pathetic. You're not gonna have what it takes to get the job done, so I am taking over. And Megatron's just like, but I'm leader of the Symbiote. And Sentinel Prime is just like, fuck you, and like shoots him or something. He's still alive though. He just goes off to sulk pretty much. So then what it comes down to is Optimus Prime gets down, but they're like, we need to get to like the main controlled pillar thing before Cybertron gets to Earth. So Sam is fighting his human adversary that's been around this whole film that I forgot to mention. He's the boss of his new girlfriend, who is just creepy. Also, there's a scene way earlier in the film where Sam and the boss dude are talking about cars, but the camera is leering at his new girlfriend the whole time, and they're like, what a nice body. Yeah, it's super hot. It gets up to like 95 horsepower, you know, 99. And it's like, you guys are just gross, and I hate every one of you. But yeah, getting back to the story, Sam and the boss dude fight, and then they turn off the pillar things, and then Sentinel is just like, Optimus, how could you? You've doomed our planet for some reason, even though the planet has been destroyed for who God knows how long, and this is really not going to affect it in any way. You've ruined everything. And Optimus Prime is just like, I literally don't care. I am just gonna kill you. But Sentinel is a little bit too strong. He's like, you didn't have the guts to be a Prime. And he like tears off Optimus's arm. But then, right as Optimus Prime is about to go down, oh wait, no, sorry. I need to go back a little bit. There's a scene where Sam's girlfriend, who again would have worked really well if this was Michaela, because it would have been Michaela confronting Megatron, who's been a pain in the ass for the last 2 movies. But anyway, she confronts Megatron and is just like, you're the goddamn leader of the Decepticons. Get a fucking grip. And he's just like, oh damn, she's right. I should get a grip. And then so yeah, he gets a grip, and then as Optimus Prime is about to get killed by Sentinel, Megatron just like blows a shot in his head. And he's just like, Optimus, we need a truce. If you join me, we can both become the leaders of Cybertron. We can split it 45-55 or something along those lines. Basically just like, I'm not gonna change my ways, but we should still like pal up and be friends now. And Optimus is just, oh, hang on, I gotta pull up the exact line. Because Optimus Prime is like his one good line is this, and I don't want to mess it up. Talking Moon. I'm not gonna play with the visuals, but I'm gonna turn off the music real quick. Okay, let's see. Is this it? Oh, cool. Got a Hidden Valley Ranch ad.
Switch to Liberty Mutual and save $652. Excuse me.
Okay. Let me skip. Okay, here we go. This is the best line of the entire film. Okay, here we go.
Who would you be without me, Prime? Time to find out.
Like, that, like, when I was watching with my friends, that line went so unnecessarily hard. Like, we were just like, oh my god, that was such a cool line, because it's just the delivery, the way, like, the music swells after. Like, that's, like, the one good part of the movie was literally 38, like a minute before the end of the film, because literally after that, Optimus Prime takes his axe and then just murderizes Megatron, just shoves the axe in his head and then just tears out his entire spine. And it's like, oh my god, what? And then he goes Sentinel Prime, and Sentinel Prime is just like, we could have been gods, Optimus, blah, 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 blah. And then he just goes like, shut up, and then blows Sentinel Prime's head apart, and it's like, why is Optimus just so violent? Again, I respect it, but it is very weird that Optimus Prime is so violent in these movies. But then, and then he kills Sentinel, and then he has his speech at the end of the movie. But the way the previous films have worked has been like the climactic scene ends, and then it goes to like a few days later. Sam and his girlfriend are having sex on top of Bumblebee. Optimus Prime gives his speech, and then the movie ends. That's how the last two films have worked. This film just has Optimus standing among corpses and corpses of Transformers, giving his speech, and then the movie ends. Just in the middle of Chicago. Just, it ends. And it's just like, okay. Thanks, I guess? And this is the second longest movie. So having the movie come to that conclusion is just... But yeah. So those were my thoughts and a basic rundown of the first 3 Michael Bay Transformers movies. Those of you who are unenlightened and are normal and don't care about Transformers like normal people do. Yeah, probably the next time I stream, whether it be to finish this, I'm probably not going to stream this piece because I think I'm gonna have to think about it a little bit more when it comes to the colors. I may just have to like restart rendering it entirely, maybe. I don't know. We're gonna see what happens. But yeah, the next time I stream, I'm gonna discuss Age of Extinction and The Last Knight, because probably I will spend even longer talking about those, because those films aggravate me to a even greater degree than the first 3 do. Like, I will get some baseline groundwork. Is just Age of Extinction is a mean movie. Like, it's everything is just like, all the other films are kind of mean spirited. This movie is the movie that is just like, wow, everybody's in jackass in this film, and Mark Wahlberg is very sweaty. Those are the big takeaways before I would get into my further thoughts. But yeah. Thank you all for coming. I hope this was enjoyable. I don't know if it was. It was just like I could talk to my friends about this, but they have seen the movies. They also don't want to think about Transformers anymore as much as I don't want to. But I needed to just get some stuff out of the way. Yeah, The Last Knight is painful to watch because its editing is so bad and the aspect ratio keeps changing. And then all the retcons with the King Arthur stuff, the Society of the Witwickens, which is a whole thing that I don't want to address tonight because I am already steamed. But yeah, Last Knight is the worst one. Yeah, no, like I can't even say like the Age of Extinction may be worse. It's not. Age of Extinction, I think, is a harder watch, but that is only because The Last Knight, you can't comprehend anything that's happening in it, but it feels long anyway. But yeah. So yeah. I hope you all enjoyed this. I'll make another tweet whenever I stream again. I don't know if it'll be in the next few days or if it'll just be in the next few weeks. I don't know. But thank you all for coming. I had a very good time, but I can feel my voice going now. So thank you and good night.